15,000 prisoners, 30,000 blinded eyes, and one order that surpassed all bounds of human cruelty. A trail of fallen soldiers stretches for miles. They stumble blindly, tripping over the corpses of their comrades. They are still alive, yet they yearn for death. 99 out of every 100 warriors have hollow sockets, seared by white-hot iron. Colonel 101 spares one eye not out of pity, but to guide these sightless countrymen. He must lead them on a march of horror back to their sovereign. This is not a fantasy legend of sadism. This is cold, hard political calculation. This is the masterpiece of strategy by Emperor Basil II. History calls him the Bulgar Slayer, but that moniker was not earned in a single day. It was forged over 40 years of relentless enmity. How did a boy raised in the silks and opulence of Constantinople's palaces become the most efficient butcher of the Middle Ages? What betrayal so shattered the monarch that he decided death was insufficient punishment for his enemies? To comprehend this massacre, one must first grasp the humiliation is greater than, clears throat, is greater than. The year is 976, Anno Domini. The Byzantine Empire, merely a shadow of the ancient Roman Empire's former glory, is disintegrating. The true masters of the realm are the generals, the aristocrats, the court eunuchs, who view the young emperor as a decorative puppet. Basil lives surrounded by luxury, but in essence, he is imprisoned within his own palace. While he signs illegible documents, a giant awakens on the northern borders. Samuel of Bulgaria. Samuel is no pampered aristocrat. He is a warrior, and he is tearing territories from Byzantium piece by piece. Greece, Macedonia, Thessaly fall, one after another. Samuel is not satisfied with tribute. He craves territory. He aims to oust Byzantium and become the dominant force in the Balkans. Meanwhile, in Constantinople, Basil's generals are idle. He understands that his own court is a hornet's nest. If he is to survive, if Rome is to endure, he can trust no one. He dismisses his grand commander, ignores his advisors, and makes a decision that elicits laughter from the entire court. He decides that he, the inexperienced youth, will lead the army against Samuel. The year is 986. Basil musters 30,000 men, clears throat. This is the largest army the capital has seen in years. His objective, the city of Serdica, a key strategic point for the Bulgars. Experienced generals warn him. It's a trap. The terrain is mountainous, supply lines vulnerable. Basil heeds them not. His pride overrides strategic thinking. He craves a swift victory to silence those who call him a child. The siege of Serdica turns into a complete catastrophe. For 20 days, the Byzantines mount futile frontal assaults, while Samuel waits. On August 17, 986, in a narrow pass known as the Trojan Gates, the trap springs shut. The Byzantine army enters the gorge. It's a natural trap. Rocky walls rise on either side, and suddenly, the sky darkens, not with clouds, but with arrows. The Bulgars appear on the mountain ridges. Massive stones roll down, crushing horses and men. Chaos reigns. Basil, the man who believed himself chosen by God, is forced to save his own life, covered in mud and blood, defended only by a handful of Armenian bodyguards who form a human wall around him to pull him from this inferno. That night, as he flees to safety in Philippopolis, something dies within Basil. The naive youth, yearning for glory, is gone. When he returns to Constantinople, there are no parades, only silence and stares of contempt. His own generals, Bardas and Bardas see an opportunity. They raise arms. The emperor is incompetent, they cry. Civil war erupts. Basil finds himself utterly alone, surrounded by Bulgars to the north and rebellious generals to the east. But Basil does what no one expects, what forever shifts the balance of power in Europe. He stops being an emperor. He becomes a warrior monk. He vows to never again wear jewels. He vows to wear purple silks only for obligatory ceremonies. He forgoes marriage to avoid distractions. He renounces wine and feasts. He trains with his sword until his hands bleed. He sells his own sister to secure loyal troops, untainted by Byzantine politics. He contacts Prince Vladimir of Kiev, a brutal northern pagan. He offers him his sister, a purple-born princess, unheard of for a barbarian, in exchange for 6,000 Viking warriors for his Varangian guard. With these Norse giants, Armed with two-handed axes, Basil crushes the internal rebellion. There is no mercy. The heads of rebellious generals are mounted on spikes. And as soon as his throne is secure, as soon as the blood dries in the streets of Constantinople, Basil turns his gaze north to Bulgaria, to Samuel. He no longer seeks a swift victory. He now understands the rules of the game. Samuel won the battle, but Basil will dedicate the rest of his life, every breath he takes, to this war. This will be a war of attrition, a decade-long hunt. The year is 1001 Anno Domini. Basil is no longer the young man who fled the Trojan Gates. He is 43 years old. He has transformed into a hardened, cold-blooded, calculating veteran, and has just begun an offensive that completely shatters all traditional notions of medieval warfare. The golden rule of ancient warfare was simple. As soon as the snow falls, hostilities cease. Roads turn to mud, horses freeze to death, supplies spoil. Prudent rulers would return to their castles to await spring. But Basil is no longer a prudent king. He is a force of nature. He disrupts the natural order. Basil fords frozen rivers. He besieges fortresses under hailstorms. He gives his enemies no respite, no chance to harvest their crops or replenish their ranks. Samuel, the mighty Balkan lion, finds himself aging in constant flight. He is no longer the predator ambushing in the mountains. He is now the prey. His empire, once stretching from the Black Sea to the Adriatic, shrinks with each passing month. His commanders begin to question if Basil is man or demon, sent to punish them. Paranoia eats at the Bulgarian command. Basil cunningly spreads forged letters, bribes governors, sows discord. He attacks not just their fortifications, but their minds. Samuel is convinced that Basil will move in a particular direction. His overconfidence will lead him there, and Samuel prepares the ultimate trap. He orders the construction of a colossal wall. It is not merely a barricade, but an immense fortification of wood and earth, blocking the entire width of the valley. Guard towers on the flanks, protected by the best archers and slingers. If Basil turns back, it will be a moral victory that may save his kingdom. And Basil arrives. It is July 29th. Silence fills the valley, broken only by the wind and the creak of wood. Basil surveys the wall. He understands what it means. A frontal assault would be suicide. His generals recall with dread the catastrophe of nearly 30 years ago. Will history repeat itself? Has Basil led his army into another stony grave? The emperor orders the attack. From above, the Bulgars rejoice. Samuel, though not on the front lines, feels luck smiling upon him again. He has stopped the monster. In the Byzantine camp, disappointment is palpable. The men grumble. The ghost of past defeat hangs over the campfires. Basil walks among his tents. His eyes are sleepless and bloodshot. He cannot retreat. Retreat would mean acknowledging Samuel's superiority. If you cannot break down the door, find a window. He summons his most trusted general, Nikephoros Xiphias. Xiphias will take a small detachment. His mission, to bypass the mountain. There are no roads. We're talking about the Belasitsa Ridge, steep peaks, dense forests, and near vertical slopes, considered impassable. This is precisely why Samuel did not fortify them. No one could climb there in armor. It was impossible. But impossible was not a word that Nikephoros Xiphias accepted that night. Under the cover of darkness, the Byzantine detachment begins its ascent. It is a torturous march. If even one Bulgarian sentry spots them, they are doomed. They are isolated, far from the main army, clinging to the slope of an enemy mountain. In the valley, a third day dawns. Basil orders another suicidal assault. Drums thunder, the air fills with war cries. The Bulgars crowd the wall, laughing, confident, ready to slaughter another wave of foolish Romans. All their attention, all their eyes, are fixed forward, on the army marching to its death. No one looks back. No one looks at the trees, at the mountain ridges behind them. And then, the unthinkable happens. A thunderous sound echoes from the mountain. It is not thunder. It is shouts, war horns, sounding where no one should be. The Bulgarian soldiers turn in confusion. The morning sun blinds them, and they see their nightmare advancing. Xiphias and his men attack down the slope, crashing into the Bulgarian rear with the force of an avalanche. Panic is the deadliest weapon. In an instant, the discipline of 45,000 men evaporates. They are behind us. Treachery. The cry spreads like wildfire. The defenders of the wall abandon their posts to counter the threat from the rear. And at that moment, Basil sees the breach. "Forward!" roars the emperor, and the dam breaks. The main Byzantine army crashes through the wooden palisade and floods into the valley like an iron tide. The Bulgars find themselves trapped between Xiphias's anvil and Basil's hammer. This is not a battle, it is a hunt. Bulgarian soldiers throw down their weapons, try to flee, trample each other in utter chaos. The Struma Valley becomes a charnel house. Thousands die in the first hour. But worse than death is capture. Seeing themselves completely surrounded, with no possibility of retreat, entire groups of Bulgars begin to raise their hands. Hundreds, then thousands. Samuel barely escapes, fleeing on horseback to the fortress of Pleven, leaving his army behind. He is alive, but his strength is broken. Yet, he consoles himself, thinking that at least his people are alive. Basil will demand a huge ransom, Samuel thinks. We will negotiate. I am willing to pay any price to get them back. They are the youth of my people. But Samuel does not understand who Basil has become. And then, the emperor gives his order. This is not an act of momentary rage. It is an industrial operation. Blinding 15,000 men requires logistics, charcoal, iron, and time. The Byzantine soldiers, hardened by years of war, hesitate at first. Killing an enemy is part of the job, methodically maiming him. That's what breaks the soul. But Basil's gaze permits no discussion. They divide the prisoners into groups of 100. One by one, the Bulgars are dragged to the furnaces. There is no escape. Screams fill the Struma Valley, a continuous chorus of agony lasting for days. The air becomes unbearable from the stench of burning flesh. 99 men in every 100 have hot iron pressed against both their eye sockets. The world goes dark forever. The 100th man, the lucky one, is left with one eye. He is to become the shepherd of this flock of misery. When they are finished, Basil does not imprison them, does not feed them. He simply points north. "Go to your king," he says. "Give him greetings from the Roman Empire." Thus begins the most horrific march in history. Endless columns of the blind, clinging to the shoulders of those ahead, stumbling, weeping, led by one-eyed cyclops, who can barely distinguish the path through their own tears and blood. They march 150 kilometers under a scorching sun. They are not an army. They are a living message, a message designed to shatter the mind of one man. In the fortress of Pleven, Samuel awaits news. He knows of the defeat at Kliuk. He knows he has lost his army, but he expects Byzantine envoys to negotiate a ransom. Such was the custom. War was a brutal gentleman's game, but with rules. On October 6th, the year of the 100th, shouts are heard. A pillar of dust rises on the horizon. Samuel goes to the walls. His heart leaps. It is them. His soldiers are returning. Thousands of them, walking strangely, hesitantly, disorganized, but alive. Perhaps Basil has shown mercy. Perhaps he has released them as a sign of peace. Samuel descends to meet them. He opens the city gates, but as the first men enter the square, silence descends upon Pleven like a leaden slab. The soldiers do not look at their king. They look into nothingness. Their faces are masks of black scabs and empty sockets. "Your Majesty," exclaims one of the one-eyed guides, falling to his knees. "Here are your people." Samuel stands paralyzed. 15,000 men, blinded, rendered useless. 15,000 mouths to feed, who will never again wield a sword or till the land. This is not just a military defeat. It is an economic and social burden destined to plunge Bulgaria into poverty for a generation. The blow is physical. Samuel feels an invisible hand grip his chest. He tries to speak, but only a choked groan escapes his lips. His legs buckle. The great lion of the Balkans, the man who defied Rome for 40 years, collapses into the dust, surrounded by the darkness of his own soldiers. He suffers a massive stroke right there. 2 days later, Samuel of Bulgaria dies. He was killed not by arrow, nor by sword, nor by poison. He was killed by pure terror. Basil has achieved his goal. He has not only defeated his enemy on the battlefield, he has extinguished his life from a distance, without even touching him. News of Samuel's death reaches Constantinople like thunder. The court celebrates. Generals toast. The war is over, they say. Bulgaria is decapitated. They think they can go home. that Basil will finally be content, satisfied with his biblical vengeance. They are wrong. Basil does not smile when informed of Samuel's death. He simply nods. He looks at the map and points to the next city on the list. The death of an enemy king is not the end for Basil. Bulgaria is not just Samuel. It is an idea of independence, that must be eradicated from the ground up. As long as even one fortress stands, as long as one ambitious Bulgarian nobleman remains, the task is not complete. Samuel's son, Gabriel Radomir, takes the throne. He is a capable warrior, eager for revenge for his father and his blinded soldiers. He tries to reorganize the resistance, but Basil gives him no time. The emperor mounts his horse again. It is autumn, winter approaches, and any other would have stopped. Basil orders the offensive. The war of annihilation enters its final phase. And this time, betrayal will come from within the Bulgarian royal family itself. Because Basil knows that fear is a powerful weapon, clears throat, but greed is even faster. Gabriel Radomir is not his father. He is younger, stronger, and possesses a burning fury. On the battlefield, he is a giant, known for piercing an enemy with his spear and lifting the body into the air. After Samuel's passing, Gabriel attempts to breathe new life into the dying Bulgarian Empire, and for a time it seems to succeed. He organizes ambushes, repels Byzantine patrols, proving to the world that Bulgaria is still alive. But Basil watches from afar. With the coldness of a reptile, he understands what Gabriel does not. A frightened empire will destroy itself. Basil changes tactics. He hides the catapults and brings out sacks of gold. He knows the Bulgarian court is gripped by panic. The nobles, seeing the fate of the 15,000 blinded men, do not wish to end up in their place. Basil begins sending secret messengers, but he seeks not generals, but family members. He finds the weak link within the royal blood itself, Ivan Vladislav, Gabriel's cousin. Years before, the old Tsar Samuel had ordered the execution of Ivan's entire family for treason. Gabriel, however, in youthful mercy, begged for his cousin's life, thus saving him from the sword. Gabriel granted Ivan life, and now Ivan will take it from him. Summer. Not even a year has passed since Samuel's death. Gabriel Radomir decides to go hunting near Lake Ohrid. He wishes to escape the oppression of war, to relax in the company of friends and family. The forest is dense, the air is fresh. Gabriel rides confidently, unguarded, beside his cousin Ivan. There is no duel, no words of honor. In the silence of the forest, Ivan Vladislav draws a dagger and plunges it into the ribs of his king, his savior, his cousin. Gabriel falls from his horse, choking on his own blood, looking into the eyes of the man who owes him his life. Ivan does not stop there. To consolidate his power, he orders the blinding and killing of Gabriel's firstborn son. The crown of Bulgaria, stained with the blood of its own family, passes to his head. Ivan Vladislav immediately sends a letter to Basil. "The beast is dead," he writes. "I am your ally. I accept your dominion in exchange for peace." Basil reads the letter in his campaign tent. Any other emperor would accept a vassal state with annual tribute. The end of the war would be a logical outcome, but Basil crumples the parchment and looks at his generals. He does not want a vassal. He does not want a treacherous ally who killed his cousins. He wants Bulgaria to cease to exist. "Betrayal is useful," Basil says. "But traitors are paid not with peace, but with steel." In response, Basil invades again. Ivan Vladislav, terrified, realizes he has sold his soul for nothing. Basil does not halt his army. On the contrary, he smells the weakness of internal chaos and accelerates his offensive. The war turns into a desperate bloodbath. Ivan Vladislav tries to fight. He resists for 3 agonizing years, watching as his cities surrender one by one. His nobility deserts to join the Romans, bringing the keys to their castles in exchange for Byzantine titles. February, the final act. Ivan Vladislav, desperately needing a victory to legitimize his bloody reign, advances on the coastal city of Dyrrhachion. It is the last important port he has left. If he loses it, he is finished. He lays siege to the city with all his available forces. It is a battle for life and death. During the siege, something strange happens. History blends with legend, but the outcome is the same. Ivan surveys his positions before the walls. Suddenly, he falls. Some say it was a duel with the city's Byzantine strategist. Others, assassins from the shadows. His own soldiers whisper it was a black rider, a phantom sent by God, or the spirit of the murdered Gabriel Radomir, to exact revenge. Ivan Vladislav dies, screaming with a ripped abdomen, as his terrified soldiers watch. With his death, silence descends over the Balkans. No more heirs, no more leaders, no more will. Bulgarian resistance, which lasted nearly half a century, evaporates in a single day. Basil advances to the heart of Bulgaria, but this time, he meets no arrows. He finds open gates. The next scene is one of the most surreal in imperial history. Basil arrives at the gates of Ohrid, the capital and treasury of the Bulgarian Tsars. He needs no battering rams. Ivan Vladislav's widow, the siren Maria, comes out to meet him. She wears no armor. The Bulgarian nobles, the fearsome boyars who once crushed Roman legions in the mountains, one by one, present themselves before the emperor, fall to their knees, kiss his red boots, surrender their lands and their swords. Basil stands motionless, surrounded by his Varangian guard. He is 60 years old, 40 of which he has spent on campaign. His hair is gray, his face etched with deep wrinkles, but his gaze remains the same as when he swore his revenge. After the disaster at the Trojan Gates, he kept his promise. Bulgaria is erased from the map. The empire's border returns to the Danube for the first time in centuries, because a man who lived 40 years at war does not know how to live in peace. The machine of conquest is unstoppable. There are other borders that must know fear. But before leaving for new wars, Basil owes it to himself to do what he hates. Return home. Constantinople prepares for the grandest triumph in 5 centuries. The people are destined to see the one who accomplished the impossible. They are to see the Bulgar Slayer, though he never asked for such a nickname. He wished only to be the emperor who did not flee. The Golden Gate of Constantinople swings open. The year is such. The noise is palpable. A wall of sound hitting the chest. Hundreds of thousands of throats cry out a single name. Basil. Basil. The streets are strewn with flowers and rosemary. At every corner, chicken-laden creates a sacred mist. It is the greatest triumph the city has seen since Justinian. And finally, Basil enters on a white horse, wearing the imperial diadem and a purple tunic. The crowd weeps with joy. They see a god on earth, a savior who has secured their borders. But if they looked closer, if they could pierce the laden smoke, they would see the truth in his eyes. Basil does not smile. He looks at the crowd with indifference. But as his gaze falls upon the marble balconies where aristocrats, senators, and landowners applaud with their soft, jewel-encrusted hands, his eyes fill with ice. For 40 years, Basil slept on the ground, ate stale bread, and drank river water alongside his soldiers. For 40 years, he shed blood to defend the empire. And what did these aristocrats do while he was away? They corroded the empire from within. While peasants fought on the front lines, the rich bought their lands for pennies. While the state bled in war, they evaded taxes and amassed personal fortunes rivaling the imperial treasury. They turned free soldiers, the backbone of the Roman army, into Clear's throat, landless serfs. Basil enters the hippodrome. Sophia kneels, thanks God for the victory, and stands. The war with Bulgaria is over. The war with the rich has just begun. He wastes no time. No celebratory banquets. Basil retreats to his chambers and drafts a series of laws that fall like a hammer blow on the Constantinopolitan elite. This is brutal administrative violence. The law is called the Elention. The concept is simple, but devastating. If a peasant is too poor to pay his taxes, his wealthy neighbor is obligated to pay for him. The court explodes with indignation. The magnates shout, protest, threaten. This is robbery, they cry in the Senate. How will we pay the debts of the poor? Basil receives them for an audience. He does not shout. He does not argue. He simply looks at them with the same gaze that broke Samuel of Bulgaria, and reminds them who holds the Varangian guard, with 2-meter-long axes in the corridor. You will pay, the emperor says, because the land you stole is the land that must feed the army. And without an army, you are nothing. The purge is methodical. Basil travels through the provinces of Anatolia. He does not visit, he inspects. And there is one story that defines this terror. Eustathius Molinos, one of the richest men in the East, a retired general, owner of lands so vast that it takes days to cross them. When Basil passes through his domain, Molinos makes the mistake of inviting him. He wants to impress. He hosts him with a royal banquet, golden tableware, exotic silks, and a private army of servants. It is the smile of a predator who has just found plump prey. Your wealth is magnificent, Eustathius, Basil says quietly. It is too heavy a burden for one man. Let me relieve you of it. The next day, Basil confiscates everything: land, gold, livestock. Molinos is arrested and brought to Constantinople, not to a dungeon, but to a comfortable apartment where he will spend the rest of his days under house arrest, watching the emperor use his fortune to fund the state. The message is clear. No one is richer than the emperor. No one is above the needs of the army. Basil retrieves land deeds from 70 years prior. If a nobleman cannot prove with original documents that his land was legally purchased, he loses it, and it reverts to the peasants. With pen and ink, he annihilates entire aristocratic families. The people adore him, the soldiers revere him. But in the dark corridors of the great palace, hatred congeals. Whispers of eunuchs are heard. Magnets sharpen daggers in the darkness. Basil is 63 years old. He has no children, no wife. When he dies, his line will be extinguished, and the vultures only have to wait. But Basil has no intention of dying yet. He has pacified the north, crushed the aristocracy in the east. The empire abounds with gold and soldiers. He looks at the map again. To the west, there is an island that was once Roman, a rich, strategic island, now in Arab hands, Sicily. Basil feels youth returning to his veins. Another campaign, another glory, to reclaim Sicily, and perhaps, just perhaps, use it as a springboard to reclaim Rome itself. Ambition knows no bounds. He prepares. A fleet, assembled from veterans of the Bulgarian wars, stands at full readiness. The Varangians sharpen their axes, and the world holds its breath. The Bulgar Slayer prepares to cross the seas. But there is an enemy even Basil cannot blind. An enemy without eyes, without a body, without fear. It is time. In December of the first year, the winter on the Bosphorus is harsh, wet, and biting. In the Golden Horn Harbor, the greatest fleet ever assembled for invasion bobs gently on the gray waves. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of soldiers, ready to sail for Sicily. This is the force destined to bring the Mediterranean back under Roman control. Everything is ready. Provisions loaded, swords sharpened. Only the emperor's order is missing. But the order does not come. In the imperial palace, in a room smelling of medicinal incense and death rattles, Basil II lies on his bed. The body, which has endured 40 years of campaigns, that has slept in Bulgarian snows and ridden under the Syrian sun, finally says, enough. He was not killed by arrow or by poison. It was simply the collapse of a human machine, worked too long at its limit. He defeated every army, blinded 15,000 enemies, reformed the most arrogant aristocracy in the world. But he made one mistake, one single tactical error, that now, on his deathbed, weighs more than all his victories. He left no heir. He devoted so much time to being the father of the empire that he forgot to be a father to a son. There is no young Basil, ready to take up the sword, only silence. And in this silence, the court vultures, the very ones he held in fear, begin to smile. On December 15th, the heart of the Bulgar Slayer stops beating. His last wish is a final blow to tradition. He refuses to be buried in the porphyry sarcophagus of the Church of the Holy Apostles, where Constantine the Great and Justinian lay. He does not wish to lie beside emperors who lived among silks. He requests to be buried in Hebdomon, in the military training field outside the city walls, in a simple stone tomb. He wishes to rest where his soldiers march. He wishes to hear the boots and hooves into eternity. He wishes to be the guardian, even in death. The richest and most powerful man on earth is lowered into the ground like an ordinary soldier, and as the stone slab seals his tomb, the empire begins to crack. The crown automatically passes to the only man with accessible royal blood, his younger brother, Constantine VII. If Basil was steel, Constantine was silk. He was 65 years old, but had not worked a day. While Basil spent decades in the mountains, eating stale bread, Constantine remained in the palace, organizing chariot races, drinking sweet wines, and playing dice. He is a hedonistic old man, weak-willed and easily manipulated. The transition is brutal. Basil left the imperial treasury overflowing with 200,000 pounds of gold. This was the largest financial reserve in the known world, a treasure intended to fund armies and defend borders for 100 years. Constantine looks at this mountain of gold and sees not national security. He sees an endless party. The palace doors swing open. The aristocrats whom Basil crushed, the wealthy families who lost their lands due to the election, rush to the new emperor. They bring not weapons but flattery. They tell Constantine how magnificent he is. They tell him his brother was a cruel miser. They tell him a true emperor should be generous with his friends. And Constantine, eager to be loved, eager to be the opposite of his stern brother, gives them what they want. The tax law that protects the peasants, asks an advisor. It is very unpopular among the nobility, my lord. Repeal it, replies Constantine between sips of wine. With that one word, the Byzantine Empire's immune system is destroyed. The Alentian disappears. The large landowners again absorb the lands of the peasant soldiers. The recruitment base for the army, those free men who fought for Basil because they had something to defend, begins to evaporate. In their place, the army becomes an expensive mercenary force, loyal only to gold. But that is not the worst. Worse is the paranoia. Constantine knows he is weak, and like any weak man in power, he fears the strong. He looks at Basil's generals, competent men, heroes of the Bulgarian wars, and sees not defenders. He sees threats. They are too popular, the eunuchs whisper. They might want your throne. We must act. Thus begins the reverse purge. The men who built the empire are dismissed, blinded, or exiled. In their place, Constantine appoints his drinking companions, trusts eunuchs, bureaucrats with no military experience. Basil's brutal meritocracy is replaced by a kleptocracy of incompetence. On the borders, Rome's enemies smell blood, Pechenegs in the north, Arabs in the east, Normans beginning to appear in the west. They realize the lion is dead, and a frail, toothless dog has taken his place. The fleet for Sicily, consisting of thousands of ships that devoured untold fortunes, never sails. The dream of reclaiming control of the Mediterranean shatters not from defeat on the battlefield, but from the indifference of one man. Constantine VII rules for only 3 years, but that is enough time to destroy half a century of work. When he too dies in 1028, he leaves the stage set for the final tragedy. Since Constantine also has no sons, only daughters, Zoe and Theodora. And here, the story of Rome ceases to be a heroic military epic and becomes a mournful farce. The throne of Basil, the throne of the Bulgar Slayer, becomes a prize in a popularity contest. Power is seized by a succession of incompetent husbands, who marry the empress in turn. These men care more about the architecture of their summer villas than the defense of the empire's borders. Meanwhile, in the east, a new sound begins to be heard, the thunder of swift horses. It is not Arabs, not Persians, it is Turks. The Seljuks advance towards Anatolia. And this time, there is no second Basil waiting in the mountains, no disciplined Varangian guard, only generals, politicians, and phantom armies existing only in Constantinople's corrupt accounting books. 46 years after Basil's death, everything he fought for will be tested in a single day. The day when the legacy of the Bulgar Slayer clashes with the reality of a rotten empire. The place is called Manzikert. August 1071. 46 years have passed since Basil's death. If one looks at a map, the Roman Empire still appears as a vast purple giant, dominating the eastern Mediterranean. But maps deceive. This colossus has rotten bones. On the arid plateau of Armenia, near the city of Manzikert, a man desperately tries to hold up the sky. It is Emperor Romanos I. Romanos is no bureaucrat. He is a warrior, a man of action in a world of scheming eunuchs. He came to the throne out of sheer necessity. The widowed empress, gripped by terror at the Turkish advance, married him, seeking a protector, one who knows how to wield a sword. But Romanos knows the truth. He knows the army he commands is a deception. Where Basil had disciplined legions of patriotic peasants, Romanos has a motley patchwork of Frankish mercenaries, craving only gold, and wild Turks who speak the same language as the enemy, unpredictable Pechenegs, and peasant conscripts who have never trained. The equipment is rusted, morale is absent, and the worst is not in the ranks, but in the general staff. To move east, Romanos had to empty Constantinople. meaning taking his political opponents with him so they wouldn't scheme behind his back. His second-in-command is no friend. It is Andronikos Doukas, a member of the powerful Doukas family, who hates Romanos and desires his downfall to reclaim the throne. Imagine the madness of going into the most important battle of the century with a knife in your back. On the other side of the hill, there is no disarray. There is the wolf pack of Alp Arslan, Sultan of the Seljuk Turks, whose name means valiant lion. He does not rule an established empire, he leads a nomadic storm. His horse archers are fast, deadly, and act as a single organism. Alp Arslan did not even want this war. His target was the Fatimid Caliphate of Egypt. The Romans he considered a secondary nuisance. But when he saw Romanos enter Armenia with a vast army, the lion turned. Friday, August 26th. The heat is unbearable. Dust obscures the sun, creating an ominous red light over the battlefield. Romanos makes his first mistake, or perhaps is forced to make it due to poor intelligence. He divides his army. He sends a large portion of his best troops, including the Frankish mercenaries and elite cavalry, to forage for supplies and capture a nearby fortress called Clayat. These troops never return. They disappear from history, flee, or are destroyed before the real fighting even begins. Romanos is left with half his forces, about 40,000 men, facing the entire Seljuk army. The emperor forms his lines. He himself takes command of the center, the most dangerous position. With his sword in hand, he tries to inspire his demoralized men. In the rear, commanding the strategic reserve, the vital force that should cover a retreat or exploit a breakthrough, stands Andronikos Doukas, the fox guarding the lion's back. The battle begins, and it is a tactical nightmare. The Turks do not clash, they dissolve. The heavy Roman infantry advances step by step, armored, slow, unstoppable. The Turks shoot arrows and retreat, shoot and run. It is the tactic of luring. Lure the enemy, exhaust him, separate him from his base. Romanos advances for hours. The sun sets. His men are exhausted, thirsty, enraged. They strike at the air. They have captured the Sultan's camp, but killed no one. The terrain becomes difficult. Nightfall approaches. Romanos realizes the full danger of the situation. If they remain here until morning, isolated, they will simply be cut down under the cover of night. The emperor makes the only correct and possible decision. He orders a retreat. The imperial standard unfurls, serving as a general signal for an organized withdrawal towards the fortified camp. However, in warfare, the moment of an army's turn, when it shows its back to the enemy, is the most vulnerable. It requires perfect discipline, and the rearguard must cover the maneuver. The Turks, noticing the unfurling standard, immediately cease their flight and themselves go on the offensive. The prey becomes the hunters, raining down arrows as they descend on the exposed Byzantine flanks. This is the critical moment when the reserve should have intervened, when Andronikos Doukas with his fresh forces should have attacked to protect the emperor and ensure the retreat. Romanos turns, expecting to see Doukas's banners rushing to his aid, but what he sees chills his blood more than any Turkish arrow. The reserve does not move, it withdraws. Andronikos Doukas, with sociopathic coldness, has ordered a general retreat. The emperor falls. He falsely cries to his troops, "Save yourselves, whoever can." And with this lie, he deprives the army of its last hope, leaving Romanos to his fate. This was not cowardice, it was political assassination, carried out at the cost of thousands of lives, who became collateral damage. The Roman army collapses, the right flank breaks, the left disintegrates, the mercenaries flee. Suddenly, Romanos I Diogenes, heir to Clear's throat, Augustus and Constantine, is alone. His horse falls beneath him. The emperor fights on foot. It is an epic tableau. One man surrounded by 1,000 enemies, wielding his sword until his arm goes numb. The next day, the captive is brought before Alp Arslan. Romanos is covered in dust, blood, and rags. A Turkish warrior places his foot on his neck, forcing him to kiss the ground. The Sultan looks at him with curiosity. He cannot believe that this dirty man is the lord of the world. "What would you have done if I were your captive?" asks Alp Arslan. Romanos, with a last flash of pride, lifts his head and replies with brutal honesty, "I would have ordered you whipped to death." Alp Arslan smiles. "My punishment will be far worse," says the Sultan. "I will let you go free." The Sultan did not lie. Freedom was the worst possible punishment, for Alp Arslan treated him with honor, signed a reasonable peace treaty, and sent him back to Constantinople. But in Constantinople, the Ducas had already seized power. They declared Romanos deposed. When the tragic emperor returned, thinking he could still save something, he found no gratitude. He found civil war. He was defeated, captured by the same men who betrayed him at Manzikert, and then subjected to old Byzantine justice. But without Basil's mercy, they blinded Romanos Diogenes. With his death, the treaty he signed with Alp Arslan became invalid. The Turks, seeing the Romans killing each other and breaking their promises, decided they no longer needed treaties. The gates of Anatolia were flung open. There was no army, no emperor. So, the Turks entered not to plunder, but to stay. 10 years after Manzikert, their horses grazed on the shores of the Aegean, within sight of Constantinople. The heart of the empire, the land that supplied soldiers with grain, was lost forever. The Eastern Roman Empire lasted for almost 400 more years. Yes, but it was no longer an empire. It was a large city-state, a dying shadow, awaiting the final blow. Basil II's tragedy was not his cruelty, it was his success. He created such a perfect machine that only he could operate it. And dying without sons, he handed the keys to the Ferrari to a drunken child. The 40,000 blind eyes in the mountains of Bulgaria were the price of glory. A blind and rotten emperor was the price of decay. The wind blows over the Anatolian plateau. It no longer carries the sound of church bells or the rhythmic tread of Roman sandals. It carries the neigh of Seljuk horses and the strange song of a new era. In less than a decade, the geographic heart of the empire, the land that fed Rome for 1,000 years, vanished. Cities emptied. Fields became pastures. This is not a temporary occupation. It is a change of civilization. The Byzantine Empire, which under Basil seemed an immortal god in golden armor, was reduced to a head without a body. Constantinople still shines, yes, but it is a dead star whose light fades with time. Without Anatolia, there are no people. Without people, no army. Without an army, one can only await the end. The great irony is as cruel as Basil himself. The Bulgar Slayer dedicated his existence to destroying external threats. He blinded an entire nation so that no one would dare cross the Danube. He accumulated so much gold that the treasuries had to be expanded. He built an autocracy so perfect, so centralized, that nothing moved without the emperor's will. And this is precisely what became his fatal mistake. He created a system designed for a colossus, without considering what would happen if a dwarf took the throne. By concentrating all power in his own hands, eliminating any independent commander, and emasculating the aristocracy, Basil ensured that after him, there would be no one to take his place. When his eyes closed, the empire went blind. It was not the Bulgars, nor the Arabs, nor the Turks who killed Rome. Rome killed itself. It was the greed of the Cork, who preferred to save money rather than pay soldiers. It was the envy of the nobility, who preferred to betray their emperor at Manzikert rather than achieve victory. In the monastery of St. John the Theologian on the island of Proti lies the nameless grave of Romanos Diogenes. His empty eye sockets now gaze into eternal darkness, united with the 15,000 Bulgars who marched through the snow half a century earlier. Victims and executioners, united by the same clear's throat, cruelty. Far away in Evna, the tomb of Basil II still stands. For now, the man who dreamed of an eternal Rome sleeps beneath the earth he defended, unaware that above, on the surface, the world he built no longer exists. The Roman eagle has ceased to soar. Now only vultures remain,